Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, and we're here for another More Insights and Strategy Insider podcast. And I am super excited to have Rob Hayes, CEO of Atom Computing, on again. Rob, how are you?
I'm doing great. Good to see you, Patrick.
Gosh, it looks beautiful behind you. Where are you broadcasting from?
I think last time we talked, we were on the 50th floor of the Austonian in Austin, and this time I'm only on the fifth floor in Cary, North Carolina, in my office.
It is beautiful. It looks like the leaves are finally turning there. So
It is fall, yes.
yeah. So, Rob, we went to your great opening. I'm not going to hit you up on that yet, but we had a discussion here on the More Insights and Strategy podcast. We talked about your technology, we talked about differentiators, we talked about your funding, we talked about a lot of different aspects of the business and the team. So, that was March, and here we are. My gosh, it's the end of October here. What has happened since March at the company?
Oh, good question. Well, first of all, we've more than doubled the size of the company. I think we were about 30 people last time we talked. We've got over 60 today. So that's been
By the
great.
way, I still can't believe you do what you do with the amount of people. And then I look at what I do with my resource level, and I'm like, well, I'm not figuring out the future of computing, but I'm impressed. Let me just say that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean it's a really high caliber team, as you can imagine, to build quantum computers. And sometimes it's not all about quantity, but certainly as we grow the company and we try to do more, we need more people, more qualified people. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so we've grown the team by about double, around 60 people now. We opened a new R&D facility, as you just alluded to. We were happy to have you and Paul come out and join in those festivities. That's the R&D facility where we'll be building our commercial systems, which are already underway, and we've got enough room in that facility to build multiple generations of future systems. And we've made a commitment, just based on our current business plan, to invest over $100 million in Colorado, in people, facilities, and capital over the 3-year horizon over the next 3 years. So we're well off, on our way and getting that footprint going. We can talk more about that if you'd like to. But as far as building our production systems, we've kind of acquired all the components. We've got the labs built out. We're actively assembling those systems today. You got a chance to get a sneak peek of what those look like and an idea of the progress that we've already made. And we're on track to having those up and running as a commercial cloud service next year.
No, I love it. And Rob, it was a very, very impressive event. Paul and I showed up a little bit earlier than expected, but I don't like to be late for everything. But it was super impressive, not only from what you had talked about, but also the type of people who were at the event. I mean, you had the Colorado governor there. You had a lot of other uh, county and state officials. Got some really interesting industry folks there from major hyperscalers. I won't use their names on here, but it was interesting. I had some amazing conversation with the folks from NIST to talk about that. I was sitting at the table with 5 PhDs, and I wasn't. You had a lot of investors. I mean, I think I counted 15 different investment companies, or at least members of investment arms, VCs, private capital, things like that. So I have to ask you, why and how are you getting all this excitement out? I think you've put out, as many press releases as I can count on my fingers, kind of being a little bit stealthy about certain things. So how are you getting so much support here?
Yeah, I think we've only maybe put out 3 press releases in the history of the company. So, I think there's already this sort of robust ecosystem of talent and research going on in Colorado and Boulder specifically, between the universities that are there, the multiple national labs, and other quantum industry players and direct competitors of ours are already there. And so, us kind of joining the party there in Colorado, so to speak, increases the gravitational mass of what's already there. And I think people are excited because it's good for students, more jobs, more people to sponsor research. It's good for the research institutions and collaborations because we bring know-how. We also kind of become a company that can bring some of those technologies to market that can help advantage the United States and the overall kind of domestic industry and building leadership in quantum computing. And it feels for us, it feels really good to have so many people excited about us and what we're building, in California as well as Colorado. And now with our headquarters in Berkeley and our R&D facility in Boulder, we've really got one foot in each of the two most concentrated camps of quantum computing research in the United States in both California and Colorado. So for us, it's really exciting that people are so excited about us. And yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've watched Austin grow, and it had a lot to do with really a small handful of companies, but also in collaboration with the University of Texas and Texas A&M. And I didn't know it until I went to your event and met some of the university officials there. But Boulder really is an epicenter of quantum, and I didn't even know that. You had NIST there as well. I had no idea. So there's no question that you picked the right spot. And I also I love the Berkeley address too for many reasons. There just aren't that many people in the industry with the brains that it takes to put this together. It's not like putting together a classical computer or a compute unit that we've been working on the past 50 years. It essentially has used the same basic architecture in the way that it does compute. So your lab tour was fun too. It's funny, I do a lot of tours, and I didn't know what everything was. I mean, it literally looks like it's like a spacecraft or something. There are laser beams. There are these incredible things interconnected. It was a lot smaller than the one in Berkeley, and that's a plus. But can you tell us about the differences between the systems that we saw in Berkeley and the one in Boulder?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll kind of say, first of all, it is fun giving lab tours in both Berkeley and Boulder, because a lot of the people, unless they're, somebody out of academics who's studied quantum physics and seen similar looking systems in the academic domain, they not only don't they know what they're looking at, but it's actually quite stunning. I mean, the technology that goes into these quantum computers, especially the modality we're building, is different than what most anybody on the planet's ever seen before. And it's with the light and the wireless control and all that, it's actually visually quite interesting, I think, for people to take a look at it. So we love giving tours. I'd say some of the big challenges differentiators between the system that you saw in Berkeley. Well, first of all, the one in Berkeley is a prototype. It's 100 qubits. It's a prototype system. It was really built with the idea of getting the technology proved out, getting the building blocks and the architectural building blocks to work together, building a software stack, being able to start to run some algorithms and applications. So, and having maximum flexibility for experimentation, learning, changing out components, trying different approaches and things like that. So that was the mindset when we put together the system in Berkeley. And so it actually looks like what you'd see in an academic lab. Everything is kind of hand placed, hand tuned. If you want to replace something, you have to take the system down and replace parts of it, and you might bump into other parts. And so it looks kind of messy, just to be honest. If you look at the one that you saw in Boulder, and we have more than one there, the couple you saw at least, it's much more kind of like professionally built. Like the whole system was designed in CAD up front, three-dimensional CAD models and simulations and all that. So we kind of knew what we were going to get as we built it. And then instead of putting everything on kind of hand placed on big breadboards, we really kind of designed and machined the parts that we wanted and in exactly the positions we want. So we gave up a lot of flexibility and experimentation, physical experimentation of what we can do in these systems. But what we gain in return is more scale in the number of qubits, more quality in the number in the sense of things are not moving around and you don't have to take systems down to replace things, and more modularity in being able to upgrade or replace subsystems in kind of a hot swappable way. So it's a very different approach to how you design. It's much more kind of a manufacturing quality kind of mindset in building these other systems that we're building in Boulder.
Rob, you showed me something interesting. And again, if I'm off script, let me know, or you can't talk about it. But it was basically an interconnect where all of the cables came into, and you have your own interconnect to pull all this together. I believe you've used FPGAs to pull it all together, and that's really a first out there. Can you talk a little bit about what you showed Paul and I?
Yeah, so you're talking about our control systems and how we control the lasers.
Exactly.
So what we've done is we were using in our first system, initially we're using off-the-shelf systems. And these are really software-defined radio systems that basically send RF pulses out to the laser so you can control very precisely the frequency and amplitude and phase and so forth of the lights, the spots of light. We have now replaced those off-the-shelf systems with fully integrated proprietary systems that we built internally. We worked with an organization in Germany called DESI on a standard, a micro TCA standard for this platform. This is a blade kind of chassis type standard with a midplane. And we're able to put these custom line cards that we've designed with FPGAs on them to basically drive RF tones that then go into the laser subsystem for controlling the qubits. And so by doing this ourselves, we have kind of accomplished two things versus the off the shelf. Number one, we're able to really dial it in for what we want. So we're able to kind of go outside the bounds of the specifications that you can get with the off the shelf, which is really important when you're kind of on the cutting edge of technology. But maybe even more so, there's a velocity component. So if we want to make a change in what an input or an output looks like, readout, there's a bunch of things that kind of fit into this system. We can just simply, lean over to the engineer, on the other side of the cue ball, if you will, and ask them to make an update. And a few minutes or hours later, you get the update you wanted. Versus if we're working with an outside vendor, the answer might be, we'll put it on the roadmap and we'll see how fast they get to that.
By the way, I was impressed with that. It was a surprise because I didn't expect it. But as you and I both know about building solutions, ecosystems matter, and sometimes you have to go vertical. And if somebody doesn't have something that you need, you build it yourself. So that was a pretty cool thing to look at. Speaking of cool, I noticed you had some really interesting conference room names. Typically it's like cities, rock bands, Stevie Miller conference room, or something to do with the city. So what is it about the conference room names in Boulder?
Well, I think the team originally wanted to name after Dungeons and Dragons characters, but we thought we could maybe do a little bit better than that. So we actually worked with the American Institute of Physics, and we went to them, and we had this idea that said, hey, there's a lot of contributors over the last literally century that have really gotten us as sort of a, not just a company, but sort of a area of research to the point where we're able to do what we're doing today with these quantum computers. And these are quantum physicists who, started with theory early on and early experiments and really got us, to advance really far. So we thought it'd be great if we could get, name our rooms in honor of some of these people. And we really wanted to focus on a couple areas. One is not the kind of, household name physicists, but more so the kind of unsung heroes, the people that maybe people don't know as much about. And it turns out a lot of them are women and diverse, African Americans and other other diverse physicists who contributed a lot to where we are. And there's not as much kind of known about them. So we thought in order to honor them, we could just name our conference rooms after them. And that also extends to formats like this, like Zoom or Teams, where the names show up on the screen as well. So
can you share some of the names of the rooms?
Lovelace is probably my favorite. But yeah, we should probably publish it. In fact, I'll get my team to publish them on the website, because I think people would get a kick out of reading some of the backstories of some of these folks.
I think they would too, and we'll put those in the show notes as well. Maybe we can get a list of them. I thought it was interesting. I received some links to some of these folks and I really like that. And Rob, it's nice to get more people involved, tell the history of where it came from, but I also think it's a really nice gesture to give credit to people who may not have credit before, because it could end up that Atom Computing is that company that makes it happen and completely changes the game. And by you growing and doing what you're doing and knocking it out of the park, you can carry some of those names with you into the future.
Yeah,
So,
I
so
like the way you say that.
yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, it's just once in a career opportunity to be able to do something like this. I mean, I've been living most of my time in this classic computer age that was really defined back with the subsystems of an IBM mainframe. And what you're doing at Atom is something that is just entirely new. It's a new compute model. I mean, heck, even GPU compute. I mean, it was different, but it wasn't necessarily as different as quantum computing is when I compare it to classical. Now, I know as part of a complete solution, you need classical plus quantum, but still, I'm always impressed with it.
Yeah, I do think we owe a bit of a tribute to the GPU, FPGA, AI accelerators, and that's our whole tranche of innovation that's happened over the last decade. And we really have developed this hybrid compute architecture that will now allow us to snap things like quantum processing units into that cluster and through those cloud services. So they've in a lot of ways paved the path for us to kind of easily slide in. But I agree with you, the difference between a quantum processing unit and a GPU is a lot further away than a GPU and a CPU in the actual underlying technology.
For sure. So, as part of the More Insights and Strategy podcast, where we interview the most important executives at the most relevant tech companies, I have to ask you, and maybe this is the final question: is how are you looking at the market uncertainty and the downturn? Are you concerned? I mean, I've seen some AI plays that burned a tremendous amount of cash very, very quickly, who expected to go to their next round really quickly, down round, and they could possibly not be viable companies moving forward.
Yeah, that's a good question. No doubt the market, both the public markets and the private venture capital markets are down this year relative to where they were last year at sort of record highs. We're, I think, lucky that we're in a good financial position. We closed a fairly sizable Series B at the end of last year, where we had raised another $60 million on top of what we already had. We're also quite capital efficient. Part of the benefit, I think, of the modality that we have with the atomic arrays of neutral atoms is that we're not having to manufacture chips, so we don't have like fab costs and chip development costs, and it's also a little bit faster for turnaround time for us because we don't have to wait for fab throughput and those kinds of things. So that kind of puts us in a good position financially, where we've got plenty of runway to bring these systems to market commercially with the money that we have in the bank. We've also, I'd say, part of our core strategy and culture of the company is really just to focus on what the value that we bring to the market. And we've made kind of the strategic decision to only focus on the hardware and kind of the minimum amount of software required to make the hardware usable, right, to end users with a good experience. And so we partner with, software developer kit, partners, cloud service provider partners, application provider partners. So by focusing on our piece, that allows us to kind of manage the scope, right? We're not trying to do everything. We're not trying to move up, be a full stack solution provider, unlike many of our competitors. And that focus creates velocity. And velocity gives you faster results, and faster results obviously makes you more efficient at the end of the day. So it's really important to us and our team that we stay focused on playing our role. And the side benefit is that also makes us very partner friendly, because we're not trying to move up the stack. We're not competing with our partners. We're more able to, I think, leverage the innovations that they're able to do on top of our platforms. And that further accelerates our commercial agenda, because we get more partners working with us to expand a larger kind of opportunity space in the market. And by doing that and partnering well together, we really believe we can win together.
No, I like the strategy, and listen, industries go through uh, times of aggregation and disaggregation. I think where we do see real growth as an industry is when you have people sticking to certain swim lanes, where there's this need to optimize every single piece of the stack. I think we saw that with the movement from Unix RISC-based servers to Linux x86-based servers when Linux became more open than Unix, and then we had a rabbit, which was Intel, right, create volume products. They stuck to their swim lanes, and the folks like Microsoft stuck to their lane when it was software. So I'm super excited, Rob, to see where you take the company next. I know you're not saying a lot. I know you've got a lot of information there, and obviously you've got multiple generations of roadmap, but I know Paul and I are looking forward to your future announcements. One question I get asked a lot, and I'd love for you to tell the audience this: what should enterprises be doing right now with quantum computing? You know, there's not enough qubits to actually make the big difference between enough high quality qubits to throw out your classic machines and actually do, to show big value. What should they be doing right now?
I think the progressive enterprises that want to disrupt and not be disrupted in this space are already making investments in small teams of researchers who are trying out quantum computing. They're downloading the open source and more research-oriented algorithms. They're learning how to use the developer kits that are out there, like Qiskit from IBM. They're learning how to program these systems. They're starting to think about how these algorithms could fit into their workflow and their application. They're trying to estimate how big of a system they might need in order to actually work that into a production workflow at scale. This is work that's happening today. And I think that any enterprise that doesn't want to get left behind in areas that have promise for quantum computing, and I'm not saying that's every industry, but it is a large number of a diverse set of industries, should be doing that already. And they should also be picking partners that have roadmaps that they think can get them to where they want to go faster, so that they can get experience in working with those partners and try out those systems, even if they're not as big as they want them to be, so that when they are, kind of ready to go, the systems are ready to go, the customer's also ready to go.
I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what we're recommending at More Insights and Strategy. You can't wait around. There is going to be no perfect hardware. If you're a company big enough that has a research group, you should be investing time and effort into figuring this out, maybe working with some algorithms. So, Rob, I really appreciate you coming on the show here. And again, I'll just say again, I cannot wait to see what's in store at the company in the future.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, and can't wait to show you what we have in the future.
Absolutely. So this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, closing out another episode of the More Insights and Strategy podcast, where we have the most powerful executives in the most relevant tech companies. So if you like what you heard, hit that subscribe button. Have a great morning, afternoon, night, wherever you are in the globe. Take care.